Did you know that one of boxing's biggest legends once failed a drug test, but never got punished for it? From a bizarre doping excuse involving wild boar meat to a scandal where a boxer blamed his failed test on eating too many eggs, the sport of boxing has seen some unbelievable controversies. Here are 20 doping scandals that the boxing world tried to hide. 1. Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr. is one of the greatest boxers of all time, but in May 2000, he got caught up in a doping scandal that many people don't talk about. After defending his light heavyweight titles against Richard Hall in Indianapolis, both he and Hall tested positive for a banned substance called androstenedione, which is a steroid precursor. This means it helps the body produce steroids, giving athletes an unfair advantage. The reason it didn't turn into a major scandal was that Indiana's boxing commission didn't have clear rules on how to punish fighters for doping. This meant that even though Jones tested positive, there was no automatic suspension or title stripping. The International Boxing Federation thought about canceling the fight result, but instead they decided to request a second test. That second test never happened. It was almost like the authorities just wanted the whole situation to disappear. Jones' team denied that he had taken anything illegal and claimed that the failed test was caused by an over-the-counter nasal decongestant. Unlike Jones, other boxers who failed drug tests around the same time faced much harsher consequences. For example, Fernando Vargas tested positive for steroids in 2002 and was given a 1-year suspension. But because Jones was such a huge star and because of the way the Indiana Commission handled the case, he faced no punishment at all. He kept his titles and continued fighting as if nothing had happened. 2. Fernando Vargas. Fernando Vargas was one of the most exciting boxers of his time, but his career took a serious hit in September 2002 when he failed a drug test for stanozolol, an anabolic steroid. This happened right after his big fight against Oscar de la Hoya on September 14th, where he was knocked out in the 11th round. A few days later, the Nevada Athletic Commission announced that Vargas had tested positive for the banned substance, meaning he had used steroids while preparing for the fight. When the news broke, Vargas denied knowingly taking steroids. He said he didn't cheat on purpose and claimed that it must have come from a nutritional supplement he was given. At a hearing with the commission, he argued that he had no idea he had taken anything illegal and that he would never do something like that on purpose. The officials weren't fully convinced, though. They agreed that maybe he didn't do it intentionally, but they also said that not knowing isn't an excuse. As a result, in November 2002, the Nevada Commission decided to suspend Vargas for 9 months. They also fined him $100,000, which was a big amount at the time. His loss to De La Hoya still counted, but the scandal hurt his reputation. 3. Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley was one of the most respected boxers of his time, but his name got caught up in one of the biggest doping scandals in sports history, the Balco scandal. Before his September 2003 rematch against Oscar de la Hoya, Mosley was part of a doping program run by Balco, a lab known for supplying athletes with performance-enhancing drugs, PEDs. According to court records and later evidence, Mosley used the Clear, a designer steroid called THG, the Cream, a testosterone-based substance, and EPO, a drug that boosts endurance and oxygen levels in the blood. These drugs gave him extra strength and stamina, helping him train harder and recover faster. However, he still managed to pass all official fight night drug tests, so no one knew about it at the time. The truth didn't come out until years later. In 2003, Mosley was called to testify before a grand jury, but since he was given immunity, he couldn't be punished for anything he said. However, he still denied knowing he took steroids, saying he thought Balco's products were just regular supplements. He even took a lie detector test to prove he wasn't lying. Since he never officially failed a test, no boxing organization suspended him or took away his win over De La Hoya. The scandal stayed hidden for years, only becoming public in 2007 to 2008, when court documents and investigations exposed the truth. Even though Mosley never faced a ban, the scandal damaged his reputation. He was named in lawsuits, and people started questioning whether his other victories were clean or if he had used PEDs before. To defend himself, Mosley sued Victor Conte, the founder of Balco, for defamation, trying to clear his name. But no matter what he said, fans and critics never saw him the same way again. 4. Vitaly Klitschko. Back in 1996, Klitschko was an amateur fighter training for the Atlanta Olympics when he tested positive for anabolic steroids during a routine drug test while on Ukraine's national boxing team. At the time, Klitschko was a top prospect and was expected to compete for a gold medal. However, because of the failed test, he was immediately kicked off the Olympic team and lost his chance to compete. His younger brother, Vladimir Klitschko, took his place and went on to win the super heavyweight gold medal. When the failed test happened, Klitschko didn't say much about it, and neither did the Ukrainian boxing team. The whole thing was handled quietly, and it barely made the news. Years later, Klitschko finally talked about it in his 2004 autobiography, where he explained that he had taken the steroids on a doctor's advice to recover from a leg injury from kickboxing. He claimed he didn't know the substance was banned and that drug testing in Ukraine wasn't as strict back then. His camp also insisted that it was just a one-time mistake and not intentional doping. Because the story didn't get much attention when it happened, many fans had no idea about Klitschko's failed test until he admitted it himself. Even though getting kicked off the Olympic team was a huge setback, Klitschko didn't let it stop him. He turned professional soon after, and his career took off. He became known for his powerful punches and incredible toughness. He also never failed another drug test in his entire pro career, especially after moving to Germany, where drug testing was much stricter. 5. Tyson Fury. In February 2015, months before Tyson won the heavyweight title, he provided a urine sample to UK anti-doping, and it later tested positive for nandrolone, an anabolic steroid. However, the test results weren't revealed until June 2016, after Fury had already defeated Vladimir Klitschko and become world champion. On top of that, in September 2016, he also missed a drug test, making things even worse. UK had formally charged him and his cousin Hughie Fury with anti-doping violations, but instead of facing immediate punishment, the case dragged on for more than a year. Fury denied ever taking steroids and came up with a wild excuse. He claimed that the positive test might have come from eating wild boar that hadn't been castrated. This explanation was never actually proven, but the case kept going back and forth in secret hearings. By late 2017, UCAD and Fury reached a settlement that allowed him to avoid a public hearing. Instead of facing a lengthy suspension, they backdated his 2-year ban to December 2015, meaning he had already served it without even knowing. Since Fury had already been out of boxing from 2016 to 2017 for personal reasons, the ban didn't actually affect his career much. His February 2015 fight was disqualified, but his biggest win, the November 2015 victory over Klitschko, remained valid because he had tested clean after that. Tyson Fury's wild excuse for his failed drug test was bizarre, but the next case is even stranger. 6. Hughie Fury. Hughie Fury, the cousin of Tyson Fury, also got caught up in a doping scandal that not many people talk about. In February 2015, after a fight, Hughie tested positive for nandrolone, the same banned steroid that was found in Tyson's system. At first, no one knew about it because the case wasn't made public right away. UK anti-doping didn't charge him until 2016, and by then, Hughie had already fought multiple times without anyone knowing there was a problem. When the news finally came out, Hughie denied taking steroids on purpose. Like Tyson, he blamed it on eating wild boar meat that hadn't been castrated. This excuse sounded strange to many people, and there was no proof that it actually happened, but Huey and his team stuck with the story. The case dragged on for more than a year as legal challenges kept delaying the final decision. During this time, Huey was still able to fight in 2016, but after that, he stopped competing while waiting for the case to be settled. In December 2017, UKAD and the Furies reached a deal, just like they did with Tyson. They confirmed that both fighters had violated doping rules, but also acknowledged that the situation was complicated. Instead of facing a fresh suspension, Huey's punishment was backdated to December 2015, meaning that his 2-year ban had technically already been served by the time they made the announcement. His February 2015 fight result was erased, but otherwise, he was free to box again immediately. 7. Lamont Peterson. Lamont Peterson was on top of the world after winning the WBA and IBF light welterweight titles against Amir Khan in December 2011. But things quickly took a turn when he tested positive for synthetic testosterone in May 2012. This test happened while preparing for a rematch against Khan, which was set for later that month. The results showed that Peterson had undergone a medical procedure to implant testosterone pellets, something that is usually done for hormone deficiencies. However, because testosterone is a banned substance in sports, this caused a huge controversy just weeks before the fight. Peterson and his team didn't deny that he had taken testosterone, but said it was for medical reasons. They claimed he had low testosterone levels and that the treatment was done under a doctor's supervision. The problem was that he either failed to inform the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association ahead of time or there was a mix-up in paperwork. Either way, it looked suspicious. Peterson argued that he wasn't doping to gain an advantage, but instead of reporting it earlier, he only tried to explain it after he got caught. At first, he refused to give up his titles and pushed to keep the fight going, hoping the Boxing Commission would approve his excuse. But the Nevada State Athletic Commission wasn't convinced and decided not to license him, which led to the rematch being canceled. Because of this, the WBA stripped him of their title and gave it back to Amir Khan in July 2012. However, the IBF handled it differently. After hearing Peterson's case, they allowed him to keep their title, agreeing that his testosterone use might have been for health reasons. Since the case was settled before any fight took place, Peterson was never officially suspended. 8. Eric Morales. Eric Morales, one of Mexico's greatest boxers, got caught in a doping scandal in October 2012, just before his rematch with Danny Garcia. Morales failed 2 drug tests for clenbuterol, a banned substance that helps burn fat and improve endurance. His first failed test was on October 3rd, and the second one was on October 10th. Both tests were done by the USADA, United States Anti-Doping Agency, and they confirmed that clenbuterol was in his system. Normally, this would have canceled the fight, but the decision was left to the New York State Athletic Commission, which allowed the match to go on as planned. Morales denied doping on purpose, saying the clenbuterol came from contaminated meat. In Mexico, some farmers illegally feed clenbuterol to livestock, and other athletes have tested positive for the same reason. Since Morales was a huge name in boxing, the commission let him fight anyway, even though the results came in just days before the event. Fans and even Garcia's team weren't properly informed before the fight, which made the whole thing seem suspicious. Morales lost by knockout, but the fact that he was allowed to fight despite failing 2 tests made people question how serious boxing was about anti-doping. In early 2013, USADA formally charged Morales with a doping violation, and he faced a possible 2-year ban. However, since he had already announced his retirement, the ban didn't really affect him. 9. Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte, a British heavyweight boxer, was caught in a doping controversy in June 2019, just weeks before his big fight against Oscar Rivas. On June 20th, Whyte tested positive for small amounts of Dianabol, an anabolic steroid, during a UKAD drug test. The results came in right before the July 20th fight, but instead of stopping the event, a private emergency hearing was held. White argued his case, and the Boxing Commission allowed him to fight. The whole thing was kept secret until a leaked report after the fight revealed White's positive test. This made fans and critics very suspicious, as it looked like UKAD and boxing officials covered it up to avoid canceling the fight. White and UKAD later released a statement saying that the steroid levels were extremely low and could have come from contamination, not intentional doping. They also pointed out that White had tested clean multiple times before and after the failed test. Even though UKAD claimed they normally don't reveal pending cases, the fact that they only spoke up after the fight made people question how fair boxing's drug testing really is. In December 2019, UKAD dropped the charge, saying the test wasn't enough to prove intentional doping. White was cleared, and his win over Rivas remained official. Even though he was technically found not guilty, the way everything was handled raised serious questions. 10. Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather's fight against Manny Pacquiao in 2015 was one of the biggest fights in boxing history. But after the fight, a huge controversy came out. The day before the fight, Mayweather was given an IV drip of saline, vitamins, and multivitamins at his home. The IV itself didn't contain any banned substances, but the amount he took was 750 ml, which was way over the 50 ml limit allowed by anti-doping rules. Big IV drips like this can be used to hide or flush out illegal drugs from the body, which is why they are banned in most sports. At first, nobody knew about this because it wasn't reported until months later. An investigative journalist, Thomas Hauser, exposed the situation, revealing that Mayweather didn't inform the Nevada State Athletic Commission until after the fight. Even more shocking, USADA approved the IV use 18 days after the fight, which was unheard of. This made it look like USADA helped Mayweather cover it up by giving him a retroactive exemption. Some reports even claimed that USADA had let Mayweather off the hook for failed drug tests before, but those were kept secret. Despite the backlash, Mayweather was never punished. His win over Pacquiao remained official, and the Nevada Commission didn't take action since USADA had already approved the IV use. But the scandal, which became known as IV-gate, made fans question USADA's fairness. Floyd Mayweather's doping controversy was shocking, but what happened next takes things to another level. 11. Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield is one of the greatest heavyweight boxers ever, but in 2007, his name got linked to a steroid scandal in a very strange way. That year, an investigation into an illegal steroid ring found that a man named Evan Fields had ordered testosterone and human growth hormone from an online pharmacy. At first, this seemed like just another doping case, but journalists noticed something weird. Evan Fields had the exact same birth date and home address as Evander Holyfield. This made people suspect that Holyfield had used a fake name to buy performance-enhancing drugs. Things got even crazier when a reporter called the phone number listed on one of the Evan Fields prescriptions, and Evander Holyfield himself answered. This seemed like clear proof that he was involved, but Holyfield denied everything. He claimed he never knowingly took steroids and that his name was being used unfairly. To prove his innocence, he even started his own investigation, trying to show that the allegations weren't true. However, no one could explain why his personal details matched Evan Fields so perfectly. Because Holyfield never failed an actual drug test, no official punishment was given. The boxing commissions didn't suspend him, and he was allowed to continue fighting. 12. Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz, also known as King Kong, is one of the toughest heavyweights in boxing, but his career has been tainted by doping scandals. He has failed drug tests twice, once in 2014 and again in 2017. His first doping case happened in September 2014 when he tested positive for nandrolone, an anabolic steroid that helps build muscle and increase strength. Because of this, Ortiz was stripped of his interim title and suspended for 1 year by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. At the time, Ortiz wasn't as famous, so the story didn't get much attention, and he quietly served his suspension. In 2017, Ortiz got in trouble again, this time while preparing for a big fight against Deontay Wilder for the WBC heavyweight title. He failed a voluntary anti-doping association drug test for chlorothiazide and hydrochlorothiazide, which are banned diuretics. Diuretics are often used to flush out other drugs from the body, which made the test suspicious. However, Ortiz and his team claimed the drugs were for high blood pressure and that he wasn't trying to cheat. He even reported the medication to VIETA before the test, but it still counted as a violation. Even though this was his second failed test, the WBC let him off easy, accepting his explanation and not suspending him. Instead, they only removed him from the fight against Wilder, but allowed him to compete again soon after. 13. Jarrell "Big Baby" Miller. In 2019, Miller was set for the biggest fight of his career, a heavyweight title shot against Anthony Joshua. But just weeks before the fight, he failed multiple drug tests. The substances in his system included GW501516, cardarine, human growth hormone, and erythropoietin, a combination that made it clear he was using PEDs to boost his performance. Because of this, his fight against Joshua was canceled immediately. At first, Miller denied everything. He and his team made excuses, blaming tainted supplements and stem cell treatments, but almost nobody believed him. It wasn't just one banned substance. He had a whole cocktail of illegal drugs in his system. The scandal damaged his reputation, but instead of learning his lesson, Miller did it again. In 2020, while preparing for a comeback fight against Jerry Forrest, he failed another drug test, this time for GW501516 again. By this point, promoters and boxing officials had lost all patience with him. Unlike other doping cases, there was no real cover-up here. The test results were made public, and Miller faced serious consequences. In 2019, the New York Athletic Commission denied him a license, meaning he couldn't fight that year. Then in 2020, the Nevada Commission gave him a 2-year suspension, making it even harder for him to return. He also lost a multi-million-dollar payday from the Joshua fight, and major promoters dropped him. Miller finally returned to the ring in mid-2022, but the damage was already done. 14. Canelo Alvarez. Saul Canelo Alvarez is one of the biggest boxing superstars in the world. But in February 2018, he got caught in a doping scandal that made headlines everywhere. Just a few months before his scheduled rematch against Gennady Golovkin, Canelo tested positive for clenbuterol in 2 separate urine tests. Clenbuterol is a banned substance that helps fighters lose weight while keeping muscle, making it popular for cutting weight before fights. As soon as the results came out, Canelo's team denied any wrongdoing. They claimed the positive test came from contaminated meat, a common issue in Mexico, where some cattle are illegally fed clenbuterol to make them grow bigger. This excuse wasn't completely far-fetched. Other Mexican athletes had tested positive for the same reason before. However, not everyone believed it. Some fans and critics thought Canelo was let off too easily, and that the tainted meat excuse was just a cover-up. Despite the controversy, Canelo cooperated with the Nevada State Athletic Commission during the investigation and withdrew from the Golovkin fight as soon as the findings were made public. Even though Canelo had never failed a test before, the Nevada Commission still handed him a 6-month suspension, which was the minimum penalty for a first offense. Some people thought this punishment was too light, considering how much money was on the line for his fights. Others argued that since clenbuterol contamination is common in Mexico, Canelo shouldn't have been punished at all. No titles were stripped, mainly because Canelo had already vacated his belts before the incident. After serving his 6-month suspension, Canelo returned in September 2018 and faced Golovkin in their rematch, which he won by decision. 15. Lucas Browne. Lucas Browne made history in March 2016 by becoming the first Australian heavyweight champion. But instead of celebrating, he got caught up in a doping scandal that changed everything. After knocking out Ruslan Chagayev to win the WBA title, his post-fight drug test came back positive for clenbuterol. This was a huge shock, and Brown immediately denied taking anything illegal. He claimed that food or drinks given to him in Chechnya were contaminated, which caused the positive test. Since clenbuterol is sometimes found in tainted meat, his explanation sounded somewhat believable, and the WBA didn't issue a long suspension. But then things got worse. In September 2016, before another scheduled fight, Brown failed another drug test, this time for ostarine, a banned muscle-building drug. This made it much harder to believe that he was just unlucky. Brown once again said he had no idea how it happened and blamed it on contaminated supplements. By this point, fans and experts started to question whether Brown was really innocent or if he was just making excuses. Despite Brown's claims, the consequences were serious. His win over Chagayev was erased, and the WBA stripped him of his title, meaning he was no longer a champion. He was given a 6-month suspension for clenbuterol, but the second failed test in September led to a much harsher 15-month ban by the WBC. Because of these bans, Brown lost a lot of momentum in his career. He spent a long time out of the ring and had to work hard to prove he was clean when he came back. Some fighters blame tainted supplements, others blame contaminated meat. But one boxer came up with an excuse so strange, it became a joke in the boxing world. And the craziest part? Officials actually believed it. Stay tuned for one of the most bizarre doping scandals in history. 16. Alexander Povetkin. Alexander Povetkin, a former Olympic gold medalist and top heavyweight boxer, got caught up in 2 doping scandals in 2016 and 2017. The first one happened in May 2016, just a week before he was supposed to fight Deontay Wilder for the WBC heavyweight title. Povetkin tested positive for meldonium, a heart medication that was banned that same year. This was the same drug that got Maria Sharapova in trouble. Because of the failed test, his fight with Wilder was canceled, and many people started questioning whether Povetkin had been using performance-enhancing drugs to gain an advantage. Povetkin's team fought back, saying that the amount of meldonium found in his system was very small and probably from before it was banned. The WBC's independent panel later accepted this argument, deciding not to suspend him because the rules on meldonium were still new and unclear. This helped Povetkin avoid major punishment, but his reputation was already damaged. However, just when things seemed to be settling down, he failed another drug test in December 2016, this time for ostarine, a muscle-building drug. Because of this, his scheduled fight with Bermane Stiverne in 2017 was canceled, making it his second fight cancellation due to doping. After the second failed test, Povetkin's promoter tried to claim contamination, but most people were skeptical. This time, the WBC wasn't as lenient. They removed Povetkin from their rankings, fined him, and banned him for a year from WBC-sanctioned fights. Even though these punishments were serious, he was never globally banned, and by late 2017, he was already back in the ring. 17. Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez, a Mexican world champion, got caught in a doping controversy in August 2021, just a few weeks before a big title defense. He tested positive for phentermine, a banned stimulant that can increase energy, reduce appetite, and help with weight loss. The test was conducted by Vieta as part of the WBC Clean Boxing program, and both his A and B samples confirmed the drug was in his system. Normally, this would mean serious trouble for a fighter, but Valdez was allowed to fight anyway, which caused a huge backlash. The reason Valdez was not suspended was because of a technical loophole. According to WADA rules, phentermine is only banned in competition, which means on fight day, not during training camp. Since Valdez tested positive weeks before his fight, the local athletic commission, Pascua Yaqui tribe, and the WBC decided not to punish him. Valdez claimed he had accidentally ingested phentermine through an herbal tea, and the WBC accepted his excuse. Instead of suspending him, they only required him to do community service and placed him under stricter testing. Many boxing fans and anti-doping experts saw this as a cover-up to protect the fight. Because of this decision, Valdez kept his title and went on to fight in September 2021, where he won the bout but didn't look as sharp. However, the scandal left a big stain on his reputation. 18. Conor Benn. Conor Benn, a rising British welterweight, was set for a huge fight against Chris Eubank Jr. in October 2022. But everything fell apart when he failed 2 drug tests. In July and September 2022, Benn tested positive for clomiphene, a banned substance that is normally used as a fertility drug for women. In men, however, it works as a testosterone booster, which is why it is banned at all times for male athletes. The test results were kept secret for months, but just days before the fight, the news leaked to the public, causing a major scandal. Once the results became known, the fight was canceled immediately. Benn denied everything and said he had never taken anything illegal. His team then gave one of the strangest excuses in boxing history. He claimed that eating too many eggs could have caused the positive test. While it's true that some food can contain tiny amounts of certain substances, most experts were skeptical of this explanation. Many fans and reporters mocked the excuse, saying it sounded like a cover-up. To make things even more suspicious, Benn gave up his British boxing license instead of facing a hearing with the British Boxing Board of Control, which led to even more speculation that he was avoiding punishment. Behind the scenes, Benn's legal team fought hard to clear his name. He submitted a 270-page report to the WBC, trying to explain how the clomiphene got into his system. In February 2023, the WBC accepted his egg defense and cleared him, saying it was possible that his failed test was caused by eating too many eggs. Meanwhile, the UK anti-doping agency separately charged Benn, but by July 2023, a national anti-doping panel lifted his suspension on a technicality, meaning Benn could fight again. 19. Misha Aloyan. Mikhail Misha Aloyan, a talented Russian boxer, made history by winning a silver medal in the 2016 Rio Olympics in the flyweight division. But just a few months later, his medal was taken away when he tested positive for a banned stimulant called 2-aminoheptane. This drug is often found in nasal sprays and can boost performance by improving breathing and energy levels. The test came from a urine sample he gave on August 21, 2016, the same day as his gold medal fight. At first, the positive test wasn't widely known, but after further testing, it became a huge problem for him. In December 2016, the International Olympic Committee officially disqualified Aloyan and stripped him of his silver medal. This was a big deal because not many boxers in history have lost their Olympic medals due to doping. However, Aloyan didn't accept the decision easily. He appealed to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, arguing that he never meant to dope. His defense was that 2-aminoheptane is found in some nasal congestion sprays, meaning he could have accidentally used it without knowing it was banned. Russian sports officials quietly supported Aloyan, but in June 2017, his appeal was denied, and he had to return the medal for good. 20. Manju Wanirachchi. Manju Wanirachchi, a Sri Lankan boxer, made history at the 2010 Commonwealth Games in Delhi by winning a gold medal in the bantamweight division. It was a huge moment for Sri Lanka, as boxing gold medals were extremely rare for the country. However, just a few weeks after the Games, his victory was questioned when he tested positive for nandrolone, a banned anabolic steroid. At first, Wanirachchi denied any wrongdoing, saying that he had taken a vitamin B injection, but as more tests were done, things got worse for him. His A sample tested positive, which was already a big problem, but he and his team challenged the results. They claimed that there might have been a mistake, and Sri Lankan officials even suggested that his sample had an odd trace of sildenafil, Viagra, which was not even a performance-enhancing drug in this case. But when his B sample was tested, it also came back positive for nandrolone, proving that he had used a banned substance. At this point, it became impossible to deny the truth. Even though Sri Lankan officials tried to support him, the evidence was too strong. At first, there was even talk of legal action to fight against the decision, but that didn't happen. In May 2011, the Commonwealth Games Federation officially stripped him of his gold medal and gave it to the runner-up, Sean McGoldrick from Wales. Wani Arachchi was also suspended from boxing, and soon after, he announced his retirement. His career, which could have been one of the greatest in Sri Lankan boxing history, ended in disgrace. Which doping scandal surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking stories like this.